and I wore the top. What are these things that keep happening? I don't even know. Like, how did I make it happen? Yeah, go ahead, try. See? Doesn't random things, bro.
Bro, that was so funny.
So, guys, another international break on the verge of getting over. And Shweta and I thought we need to sort of make sense of this season because it's been so different from not only last season but a lot of the trends that would pick up for EPL and FPL, of course, in the seasons before as well have just not happened, right? So this season is markedly different in several different ways. So we've gone ahead and done a lot of homework for you, which is we've gone ahead and compared data from last year to this year to try and make sense of what you can do from here on to capitalize the most in terms of whatever trends are developing and whatever we are being able to read so far. The data that we're comparing is for just the number of game weeks that have elapsed. So this is a comparison in like and like numbers. We'll begin by talking about the defenders. So what was your observation, Shweta? What were your observations when you looked at this top 10 data?
It's a little shocking, I would say. I mean, that's how unpredictable FPL is to begin with. And the top players, to name a few, were Alexander Arnold. He used to be my favorite. And then we have Gabriel from last season and Konate. So those were the top three that I found. Honorable mention, Van Dijk, fourth place.
I'm just
And
keeping silence. I'll let you talk right now. I'm too heartbroken to say it.
heartbroken. Yeah, I understand, man. I
Yeah.
mean, still very early. Pedro Porro is in that list also for
Yeah.
last season. However, these players are not in the list for this season though, which is weird. So,
All of
uh,
barring Gabriel, he's still there.
yeah, that's right. So for this year, we have Timber, Gabriel, Senesi, Gay, the ones that really stand out for
Yeah.
us. Obviously, it has a lot to do with new signings and how the teams gel together and whatnot. But it's very shocking to see a big chunk of them is not in this year's list.
Yeah.
We also have new people that have made it to the list. Alderete, Munoz.
I'm smiling right now because she brought in Alderete and then he black.
That's why I pointed out his name also.
I think based on this data, I'm sure it makes you feel better about having him because he is cheaper. He, you
Yeah.
know, up more avenues in terms of other players, and then I'm sure you will get dividends eventually.
Yeah, that is true. Mark Gehi and Senesi are ones that I mean it's I would be a bit surprised if people still don't have these players in their team because they are oh
I mean, I have Senesi, but I don't have Gehi, but okay.
sorry, let me rephrase that. Either one. I'll be surprised if you don't have either one. So yeah, I have Senesi, I don't have Gehi. I think these two players, they definitely offer great value, high value for that price that they're at. I think not really Magi is a little bit on the pricier side, but still one to keep, one to look out for. I mean, they give consistent minutes, Senesi, DEFCON points. If you
I
don't have them, guys, either one, what are you doing?
I think they are also in their own right some sort of differential for what it's worth because while everyone has gone for Arsenal defenders very easily, these
Yeah.
two, at least at the outset, weren't really part of every single team. So, anyone who had them from the very start or early on was able to capitalize on some sort of a differential margin, which wasn't necessarily available because to Arsenal holders, because almost everyone had a Gabriel or a Timber or a Calafiori.
Yeah.
So a huge shift in who were in the top 10 last year as opposed to who's in the top 10 this year. I think it's very telling that Gabriel was there last year and he continues to be there this year. What's very disturbing is the number of Liverpool players, who were there in the top 10 last year. And this year, as defending champions, we've got no Liverpool players at all among the defenders. I do want to touch on Gabriel because it's very interesting, and his points say something very telling about the larger role of the defenders that we are seeing evolve this season. So Gabriel, by the time of 7 game weeks, he had scored 2 goals and he had 39 points. As opposed to which this time he scored only 1, but he's got 47 points. So this underlining something very important that's happened. It's a massive shift. One, of course, Gabriel was also involved in the attack last year, but the fact that Timber is above him shows that defenders who are contributing more towards the attack are giving you better returns. So essentially, there is a change in your approach to FPL because clearly clubs and their strategies have evolved. They are using defenders to attack more. So your strategy has to evolve the same way. And then to come back to Gabriel, even though he scored just 1 goal compared to 2 last year, he's got more points because DEFCON has become such a major contributory factor. So when you're picking up players, you will, I think if you're still picking up players based on who's your cheap player who can give you a clean sheet and then you can save the rest of your money for your midfielders and attackers, that's a very last year strategy. Because this year, a lot of premium defenders have really given you good points. So case in point is Gabriel, for instance. So when you're picking up defenders, they don't necessarily have to be cheap. Clean sheets have been very hard to come by. So that has, again, not really been a decisive factor. I think that's more been a decisive factor in terms of picking up a goalkeeper, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and even there's not really been any sure shot person that you can go to and say, well, you know what, 1 out of 3 games I'll get a clean sheet because they've just been very hard to come by. And then the other thing is that when you're picking up defenders, again, pick up the defenders who are involved in attacks. So they could either be involved in the set pieces or they could be on corners or they could be pressing up high. So you have to go in that direction and of course pay attention to the DEFCON points. And I think that is another place where someone like Van Dijk has been a big letdown because where we all assume that, despite his high price, he would also give a lot of good returns. It's not been as good with him. Not with the attack, of course, and not even with DEFCON points. He's not been as consistent. So I think he's gradually seen a fall in his shares as far as inclusion within FPL teams is concerned. So then let's move on to the midfielders, right? So what were your observations there?
This is very interesting. So the top 3 players, top 3 midfielders for last year were Cole Palmer, Salah, and Saka. Saka Punch. For this season, none of them are there. None of them have made it to the top 10.
Yeah.
But I'm not surprised. As a Liverpool fan, I know it's very heartbreaking to say this. I'm not shocked when I looked at the data, but yeah. So for this season so far, in the top 3, Semenyo, Caicedo, and Jadon Anthony. Those are our top 3 midfielders. How do you feel about Salah? I actually wanted to ask you this. How do you feel? And Cole Palmer and Saka, I mean,
Cole Palmer,
really...
And Saka's also been, sort of coming back from an injury. So
Exactly.
yeah.
That's why I wanted to highlight Salah in particular. Now, I understand that, I mean, there's one fraction of it where Trent is not in the picture. So, a lot of those contributions and stuff don't really come to Salah anymore. So that whole strategy and how that plays out for him, he has to now adjust and change. So that's one thing. But I don't know, what do you make of this? How do you feel about it? You look really stressed, the fact that I said Salah.
I don't know. One doesn't really want to talk about Salah as much right now because, okay, so yes, there's this entire conversation that's been going on about Trent, of course. I do
Yeah.
want to point out though, it is so typical of all critics, which includes your experts who have played football themselves, to talk uh, about someone in one vein till much later where you suddenly wake up and then change your tune. And I think Trent is exemplary of that. While he was still part of EPL, Klopp, who maintained that he is a world-class player, and that's not to say that people didn't see that he was a world-class player, but everyone else was always harping more about how he was not a good enough defender. And while that criticism was also leveled correctly, I don't think he ever got as much appreciation for what he did while he was still part of Liverpool as he is getting now when he is no longer part of Liverpool. So while laymen and amateurs, which is what I would count all of us who've not really, played football at that level, we all can make that mistake. The fact that experts who played football themselves and who played it at that level, they end up missing out on these things is extremely questionable.
Yeah.
To also mention a second thing, honestly, Bradley under Klopp was almost as effective, and in fact, defensively, he was better than Trent because he was playing quite regularly when Klopp was still there, and there was in fact a time when Trent got injured, so Bradley was playing in his place. And he did manage to make a lot of those passes and he kept that play going. Somehow, Slot is not being able to extract the same sort of performance from him. And I don't know, I can only put it at Slot's doorstep, right? Because, I mean, Bradley is still the player, and if he performed under one manager, then you can only question why he's not performing under the other one. But that I think is one substitute which I would have expected to work. And then, of course, like you said, Trent's absence means that Salah is not as involved. We do expect, when Isak comes into the attack, that changes. But I think those are then changes that are still taking their time. And in the meantime, while Liverpool figure out their form, their tactics, their defense, their midfield, again, of which there's only Gravenberch in the top 10 for this year. There's no other Liverpool player over here. I don't know. I think it's a waiting game. One hopes they come back more solid on their feet after this international break, having had some sort of time to figure out what it is that needs to start working now. Because if we keep saying that, in FPL, there's only so many points you can miss out on because later on it gets too late to make up for them.
Yeah.
All the more true for EPL. I'm honestly of the school of thought that says even if someone as big as Salah is not playing, then bench him. Sometimes that works like a charm. I'm not saying that this is, the responsibility is with him individually. But, there are also moments and instances where you see certain things not work and you're like, well, you know what? Bench him, bring in this other person. We've talked about this earlier as well, how effective Chiesa has been, and all Liverpool fans, I think, across the world are talking about his name.
Yeah.
I have to call up Slot one of these and ask him, what's your problem? What's your problem? Tell us.
Maybe two women should confront him. Maybe then he'll be like, oh yeah, it makes sense. I'll probably cut that out of the video.
This time around, however, no standout midfielder, who's performed so consistently that he's been able to give you those sort of points on a consistent basis, barring Semenyo. Semenyo is like the one exception. But I think from all this doom and drama, the one plus point that's come across is that it's given us the potential to spread out our money across those mid-price midfielders, not someone who is as expensive as Salah and who ends up blocking your funds completely. So you have a lot of those other options who are then giving you returns, if not every week, then every other week. And that's sort of a leveler as well across FPL, because then if you're not getting points every single week, then it's not like, your opponent is either. So, for instance, you see Grealish over here among the top 10. He is the 9th among the top 10. And he is someone who really worked in the first 2 or 3 games. And then he didn't work for the next few games. And then he suddenly worked in game week 7. In terms of a strategy, I think I would say figure out enough players from enough different clubs so that you have enough options across the different games that are getting played out every single week. Not eggs in one basket, basically.
So I was just thinking, would there come a time where all these players would not be a differential anymore? Like everybody's team would be so template. But then again, I thought about it again and I'm like, there are so many options that I don't think that will happen anytime soon.
But I think, what that essentially ends up happening, right? Like to a certain degree, at least about 30 to 40% of everyone's teams start to look very similar. So, for instance, last year, everyone had Salah and Haaland at one point of time. Then they were trying to fit in Cole Palmer as well. So, those sort of similarities will always abound. Then I think the difference makers are always, where else is your budget going? And then with that, let's go to the strikers. What struck you about the strikers?
The only 2 that I managed to, get some kind of comparison was between Haaland and Chris Wood.
What?
Yeah, he has traumatized all of us, especially the ones who have triple captained him in game week. Was it game week 2? I think.
I think it was 2 for you.
Yeah. Anyway, I don't want to talk about that. So, okay. Another small note is that only Haaland and Chris Wood are the consistent ones that appeared in the list that I found. So that's why I actually mentioned the 2 of them.
Chris Wood is 10th though, so you don't know how long he might last among the top 10.
There are some new faces in the list for the top players this year. João Pedro, Bourne, Ekitike, Thiago, Richarlison, Isidore, Gyökeres, and Woltmard. None of these guys were there last year. So,
some of them weren't even in EPL last year. So.
Yeah. A lot of people were having a lot of back and forth and a lot of fire with João Pedro actually. I mean, their concern is, it makes sense. However, in my personal opinion, I think it's still too soon to be too worried about him because his fixtures look really good. So I think he has a lot of potential to actually, compensate for that few times that he blanked. And a few people were actually telling me that João Pedro is the type of player that only has a maximum of 11 goals per season in FPL.
Okay.
So they were like, you can sell him, it's not that great and stuff. I think it's too soon. So I think he's doing fantastic. So yeah, it's just my 2 cents about him.
I think your 2 cents are definitely worth it considering he's the 2nd position, despite not having the last 2 games or 3, I forget now. But yes, I think once I started looking at these numbers, something that really, really struck me was the gap between Haaland, who's at top, and you're second placed. Haaland is at 70 points. João Pedro is at 39, which is almost half of what he has, right? And Bowen, who's third, is actually 50% of Haaland. He's at 35. That just goes to show that while Haaland's having a phenomenal, at least start to the season, it's not really been a striker season per se. This year, there have been 35 goals vis-a-vis 41 goals last year. And there have been 6 assists from strikers vis-a-vis 13 last year. So I think largely when you look at something like this, it also makes you realize that strikers are not really getting as involved in attacks as you would expect them to. Like, City is the outlier over there. So which is why there's no one striker. And then that's of course not to say, guys, that they're not really involved. You know how I mean it, right? In the sense of things. And as soon as that happens, you know that this is why you're someone like an Ollie Watkins, whom people held on to for so long, right? And who's done so well in the past. He didn't work. Well, of course, they've also gone through changes in their side. The same for Jarrod Bowen, although he managed to pick up pace really fast because he was nowhere in the picture and then suddenly now he's third. But basically, it's just not been the season of strikers. And this is just a side note. I think other than Chris Wood having fallen, a person who really took me by surprise, whom I did not think of at all when I thought of high scoring people last year, was Nicholas Jackson. Nicholas Jackson, whom Chelsea was all too happy to be rid of, and then suddenly he didn't know whether he was even going to Bayern or not, and there was that entire thing. Suddenly he's like, he was the second most prolific at this point of time in the EPL last season. So, wonders never cease. What you realize is maybe don't go too heavy-handed in the forwards. You have to have Haaland. Other than that, figure out who else you need to get and maybe keep your money more for your defenders and figure out what midfielders you have. Also, what's happening, I think, with a lot of the big teams is, and this of course happens every year, you are involved in a lot of games, right? You've got the Champions League, you've got, well, a dozen other things. So you've got more players. So case in point, especially, is Liverpool. Earlier, where Ekitike was performing very well, he had an explosive start to the season. As soon as Isak came in, I think it's really hit him psychologically. And now that time and therefore the possible points are getting divided between the two. And that's bound to be everywhere, right? Even with Arsenal, for instance, you don't know who might actually start because rotation is such a problem. So you have to factor in all of that and then figure out who makes the most case to be included within your team and then where you really need to put your money.
You're right. Haaland is the only constant striker so far. The rest of them, it's like there is a possibility you could bench these players and bring in someone else, but with Haaland, you can't do that.
So what's your takeaway for the next few weeks once you look at this data? How are you going to, distribute your money?
Mainly gonna be focusing on the midfield and the defenders. For me personally, goalkeeper, I don't think I'm gonna change Henderson anytime soon. And I think now I have to change my strategy and to have a rotation. So, like what happened with Grealish. So now I'll have to see what to do there. I'm okay with my team so far because I have all the key players that I will need for now, hopefully. I have Haaland, Semenyo, Senesi, Alderete and all that. So I'm going to keep it that way for now, for the next few weeks, until further notice. Because so far on paper, it looks like it might work. My key takeaways are, you don't have any consistent strikers for now other than Haaland. If you don't have Semenyo, what are you doing? What about you?
So yes, to add to the Haaland and Semenyo, I would say Senesi to the defenders and park most of your money in Haaland and then of course figure out which players you need to get. I've so far had Isak. He's not been a good or a bad return. I think I'm also going to continue keeping him because he's expensive enough that anytime you want to switch things up, he's a person who requires that you have at least two transfers in hand, which always makes it a little difficult, and no one else is really making a case for their inclusion so far. So until such time as that happens, and I hope it doesn't, I hope Isak makes a case for him to be retained. I will also be keeping things like that. So this was interesting. I think it's also given us a good idea of where you can go from here. Like, for people who are planning to maybe use a wild card now, this is a very good way of looking at things and sort of summarizing an understanding of who may work in what position better than which other player. Any parting words on the pre-Diwali game between Liverpool and United? And I think then we can close it after that.
Do I have to be nice?
No, you don't. No, please
No?
go
Okay.
ahead. Be happy, whatever.
I don't know if this is gonna make the cut, but happy Diwali to everyone celebrating except Manchester United fans.
Bang on. Happy Diwali. Hopefully it'll be a happy and not for United people. May the United people suffer. And Liverpool be like, yeah, baby. Now we remember we're the defending champs. Now we're gonna play like that.